Okay, it's 2 o'clock on Tuesday, March 3rd. And we're going to dispense with the usual prayer and pledge. Although, probably could use the prayer more than anything. This is the #1 case management software to hear a report and review the final negotiated agreements with the Texas Conference of Urban Counties and take any action necessary.
I'll start. I guess I called this meeting together. So today we have almost the finalized documents. There may be a few more small changes on one of the documents left to do. But what I thought I'd do, I wanted Mr. Charles Gray from TechShare, he's the director at TechShare, to come and to give a presentation on the program we're looking at and all the specifics of that. And then I have a short review of some of the contract terms and the highlights of the contract. And then if any of the departments want to speak after that to the product and how they like it, how it's going to meet their needs, I figured we'd do that. And so really this is just informational so that you as a court can ask any questions you would have of any of the parties involved that have been through this whole process. My intention is on this next Monday to actually put the decision to the vote to decide if you want to move forward with the projects or not. So I guess first, if Mr. Charles Gray would like to come forward.
Thank you, Judge and Commissioners. I'm Charles Gray. I work for the Conference of Urban Counties. I'm going to give you an informal presentation. You have a copy of it in front of you. I'm happy to answer questions at any time during the briefing. I'll tell you a little bit about who the Conference of Urban Counties is, a little bit about the TechShare program, which I operate, and then a little bit about the prosecutor and the court projects that are being proposed for your consideration. The Conference of Urban Counties is a nonprofit association that really works for you. We represent your interests as an association. The Commissioner's Court is our client, our customer, our member. It was formed about 40 years ago, and it was formed by the 6 largest counties in Texas who found at that time that they really were facing urban problems and they needed a voice at the legislature to represent the needs of urban counties. That's how it started, and it grew from there. A few years ago, when energy was deregulated, the association decided that maybe they could collaborate on some activities besides just public policy. So they formed a buying consortium, and they went to the market to buy energy for counties in Texas ERCOT. And they found that they could save money by pooling their resources and working together. So about a few years ago, they decided to do the same thing with technology. Now our membership is about 38 counties right now that represent about 80% of the population of Texas. So it's primarily the counties that are focused on the issues of urbanization and urban growth. Those are the members of the association. And we work for you, the Commissioner's Courts. That's our customer, our supervisor, and our overseer. 10 years ago, the board of directors of the urban counties decided they wanted to take a look at how they could save money by collaborating on technology. So I was brought in as a consultant at that time to help them figure out how could they collaborate. And so we formed a program called TechShare. Now TechShare is really not a purchasing consortium. That's not our mission. The counties do that much better than we can do it. So that they can form consortiums where they can buy off state contract for excuse me, commodities or software equipment. What we are is we're kind of a project organization. So if 2 or more counties want to do a project together, they approach us and they pool their resources and we do projects together. That's really the purpose of TechShare. We have several programs in place already right now over the past 10 years that have been fairly successful. Some are commercial products. Our Common Integrated Justice System is a commercial product. Excuse me, the counties have gone together to use and operate together. Our juvenile case management system is a system that we developed ourselves. It's now in use in 233 counties. We maintain it, we host it, we operate it. You're using it here in your juvenile probation department in Potter County. Prosecutor system is a new product that's recently developed. 4 counties went into to pool their resources to build that system. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And that's one of the products that you're considering. And then the court system is a new project as well that's being built at this time for the counties in Texas. Then the final thing is indigent defense. A few years ago, the Indigent Defense Commission approached us and asked us to take on a project, to take a system that had been built for Bell County using grant funds and make it part of TechShare so that it had a home. It needed a place to be maintained and operated. And so we took that on, and we're now hosting that. We have 9 counties that are sharing it. 2 more are joining this year. And that's an interesting program because right now it's 100% grant funded. So you can apply for a grant to the Indigent Defense Commission, and they fund your implementation, your operation, and maintenance of the software. So it's kind of a unique offering, a state-county collaboration. This is how we're governed as a program. I have an oversight committee that I report to that's composed of judges and commissioners from 7 counties who participate in the program. So I work directly for those county judges and commissioners who are on that oversight committee. That committee then in turn reports to our board of directors, which is comprised of also county judges and commissioners. So it's a completely county operated, managed association and program. You'll notice that we have these committees called stakeholder committees. What we ask is each of the participating counties in the program to appoint a representative to serve on those committees. And those are like our steering committees or oversight committees for individual projects. The oversight committee, which is our governing committee, meets monthly. The stakeholders committee can meet as much as once a week when we're in development on the project. So if you decide to join the program, we'll ask you to appoint representatives to the appropriate committees to represent your interests. It's usually a person who either reports to the Commissioner's Court or sometimes it is a Commissioner's Court member, or it might be a key stakeholder or user of the application. We want people that are not necessarily technical on the stakeholder committee, because they really represent the interests of the county. And we also have a technical committee. So if you join our program, Jason would be involved with our technical committee, so that the technical staff in the various counties work together and solve problems together so that they get support for one another. One person in Travis County said that really TechShare makes their IT department bigger and stronger because they work together with other counties. Now let's talk a little bit about TechShare Prosecutor. That's one of the specific items that you're going to be considering. This is a relatively new software package that we developed in-house ourselves. So it's completely 100% developed, owned, and operated by the counties. The project started in 2012. 4 counties came together to start the project, pooled their resources. We based the system on an application that had been built by Tarrant County, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a minute. And it's completely custom built. It's web-based, built from scratch, up to the latest technology. I mentioned that it came from a system that was developed by Tarrant County. Tarrant County first developed a system starting back in the early 2000s where they wanted to put electronic case filing online. So they built a system called the electronic case filing system. I think your district attorney and perhaps your county attorney started following that project early on. A lot of counties expressed an interest in what Tarrant County was doing because they were really trying to automate the relationship between the county attorney and district attorney's office and the filing police agencies so that they can interact electronically with those organizations to do better, have more efficient use of their time and resources. So they looked at that system and they decided that they wanted to make it available to other counties, but it was really built specifically for Tarrant County. So a few years later, they asked us to get involved. So we took over that application and used it as the starting point to build TechShare Prosecutor. We finished the first release in the spring of 2012. Dallas County, or 2014, Dallas County implemented it shortly thereafter, and Midland County is now live on the system as well. We're implementing in Tarrant County now and also in Travis County. So it would be the 4th county to join and share that application if you decide to participate. It includes 3 major components for your community so that it's not just for the prosecutor's office. There's a port for the law enforcement community so they can file their cases electronically. They can submit evidence electronically. They can submit anything from a video to a witness statement electronically to the prosecutor's office. So it manages that interaction. The prosecutor can then say, we're going to accept the case or we're going to return the case to you. We need more information. And that can all happen electronically. Just as important, it provides, Hi, Commissioner. It provides a capability for the defense attorneys to interact with the prosecutor. So defense attorneys have a portal as well. And they can log on to a web-based portal. They can receive their cases. If they're an indigent defense attorney, they can receive those cases that they're appointed to, or they can interact with the prosecutor for those cases where they're assigned or retained by the client. And what's really important is it makes all discovery electronic. You may be aware of the Michael Morton Act that was passed a few years ago. It really changed the way the prosecutors interact with the defense bar. And we've automated that entire process, so the entire discovery process is electronic in the system. It saves the defense attorney's time. They don't have to necessarily go down to the courthouse to view all the evidence, to view what's discoverable. They can also do plea negotiation. So if the prosecutor has a plea offer that they want to submit to the defense attorney can evaluate that, discuss it with their client, and they can respond to it. So that's all electronic. It's meant to save time and money, not just for the county, but also for the attorneys who defend their clients, because in most of those cases, you end up paying that bill as well.
Can I ask a question along those lines on this one?
Sure.
As it relates to the attorney portal, what are other counties doing for that? Is there a fee for the attorneys to log in and gain access to it?
That's a really good question. So first, it's one portal for multiple counties. So an attorney who practices in any county that has cases in Potter County can access it. Second, our general counsel has said that his legal opinion is that if the county offers discovery in another way other than through the portal, then the county can assess a fee. Right now, Tarrant County charges a fee. It's $125 a year for the use of the portal. But you'd have to have your own legal opinion from your counsel to see if that's appropriate for you. We advise you to seek legal opinion from your counsel. So the important thing to note is that you can charge a convenience fee if there's another way that they can get it that's less convenient. So if you continue to make discovery available in the prosecutor's office or either the county attorney or the district attorney, you can charge a fee as a convenience. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you. And the $125 fee, the convenience fee, if you will, that Tarrant County is using, is that per law practice or per attorney?
Per year.
Per attorney per year. Okay, thank you.
I won't go into detail on the specific modules that the prosecutor system has, but it does include everything from filing the case and interacting with the police agency as we discussed, preparing the case for grand jury, preparing all the paperwork electronically for the grand jury. When the jury process is all automated, then filing the case into the court and everything that involving interaction with the court. The system has very high security. It's role-based security. So it's been really defined by the attorneys who are going to be the users of the system. So they have their own work product that's protected from disclosure. They have their own cases assigned. They can seal cases so that no one can see them except the highest level of authorization in the attorney's office. So it's all governed by role-based security. The defense attorneys apply to you to be authorized to use the application. And then once you approve it, we set up a log-on password and we give training to the defense attorneys because we're hosting right now that defense portal. It doesn't have to be that way, but we find that if you want them to be able to cross jurisdictions, that's a convenient way to do it. So we provide the training, we provide the help desk support for the defense attorneys who are using the application. Some of the recent statistics from Midland County show that they only have 32 defense attorneys on the system right now, but they've used it thousands of times to review discovery and prosecution. So it's very popular with defense department. Benefits to the county. We have some testimonials that I didn't really include today from some of the counties that are using the software. You know, in addition to the normal efficiency for the operation of your own internal departments, as I mentioned, it helps the law enforcement community. They no longer have to drive their cases to the courthouse to file them. They can file it all electronically. They don't have to come to the courthouse to provide additional evidence. The defense attorneys don't have to come to the courthouse to do discovery or interact with the prosecution. They still have to go and visit their client, of course, but they don't have to necessarily incur the costs of coming to the county to perform their business. So a lot of the efficiencies, not just in the county, but also in the local law enforcement and justice community at large. The Michael Moore compliance is an important area. There are some very specific aspects in statute about how the county must comply with Michael Moore Act. And so we put all those into the software so we're fully compliant with Michael Moore, including producing what's called the manifest that shows all the discovery that was made available to the defense. That has to be presented in the courtroom. So we actually prepare the manifest for the prosecutor and the defense attorney to review so that they can make sure that all the discovery that was appropriate was made available. And then that's filed in court, so that document is actually produced out system as well. So that was really a big issue for the counties. Some of the counties are actually incurring additional costs because of Michael Moore. So we're trying to help reduce those costs to meet the statutory requirement. County administrator, I think, is an important aspect of the system that often gets overlooked. You really have a lot of control of the software, even though there are multiple counties that are using it. It's highly configurable. And what that means is that your county can really design the screens to a certain extent the way you want them. So when we train Jason and his staff, and people in the county attorney and the prosecutor's office, they can actually control how the data is presented to them, how it's sorted, how it's controlled.
So in respect to the different agencies, it can be this to what that particular agency needs?
That's correct, sir. It could be, if the county attorney wants to see it differently than the prosecuting attorney, they can actually control it. Now, law enforcement agencies have some control over their screens, but it's really based on configurations established by the county. Okay. I'm going to move on and talk a little bit about court, and then we'll get to the what I call the DS laws. This started off a little differently. You know, we have a large contract with Tyler Technologies for the Odyssey program. We have 18 counties that are sharing the Odyssey through the conference with counties right now. Some of the counties found that it really wasn't what they wanted to use. So in 2012, they came together and they said, what can we do? What are our options? What are our alternatives? So we did a planning project for them and went through the requirements analysis and tried to figure out what's different about those counties. Why did they want to do something different? And they really wanted to be in a position where they could control the software themselves. One of the tenets of the program that I haven't really emphasized is this software is owned, operated, and controlled by the counties for the counties. We're just your agent, we just work for you. I like to say that TechShield is a nonprofit, customer-owned software company. That's what we are. We're really just an extension of your IT department. We're a software supplier for county government. And some of the counties really like that model. They want to be able to control their annual costs. They want to not be surprised when the vendor has an upgrade. That's how TechShield really came to be. So these counties came together. There were 4 at the beginning. Bell County was included, but they decided not to go forward. And they wanted to look at the marketplace. So we went back to the marketplace. We did an RFP, but there was a little provision that was different. We wanted to have our autonomy as an organization so that we could actually license or own the software that used in the county government. So we were willing to pay fees to the vendor for that, and we weren't willing to negotiate that, but we wanted to own and control the software. And we didn't want to start from scratch. We wanted to have a core system that could be a starting place for building out something just for the counties in Texas. Through that process, it came down to Tyler and AMCAD. They were the 2 finalists. And the negotiation went to AMCAD because they were willing to grant us that autonomy and grant us that ability with the software from Texas. So we own and control the TechShield.court software for any trial court in Texas. Just a few exclusions that were former AMCAD customers. So for example, here in Potter County, if you decided you wanted to offer the software to the city of Amarillo to use in their municipal courts, you could do that. Your license, your participation in the project will allow you to do that. If another county joins in the project, you get the benefit of some of that financial contribution that they pay, just like in prosecute. If another county joins in prosecute, you actually can get some of your money back. Kind of unusual that a county can get some of their money back for their software. That's a fact. So we went into this contract with AMCAD. assuming that AMCAD was going to build out the software in Texas. We were gonna provide the requirements, the testing, our role was going to be to oversee it, and they were gonna build it. And suddenly AMCAD was purchased by another company. They were purchased by a company called Riverside Investments out of Boston, Massachusetts. And we thought that was probably a good thing. This was a big kind of venture capital company, so we thought there'd be infusion of capital into the company. But it turned out it wasn't. Because once they really examined the internal workings of AMCAD, they decided that they didn't think that the justice market for them was going to be profitable. So they left the justice market. They departed from it. They wrote us an email and said, we're no longer going to honor the contract. So we were prepared for that. Because we knew AMCAD's circumstances. We knew that they were operating on a very narrow margin. We knew a lot about the company because we'd really done a lot of investigation. And we had a contingency plan. And so as soon as they notified us of that, we immediately implemented our contingency plan. And we took over development software in TechShield. We were accustomed to doing that. We developed the juvenile system, we developed the prosecutor system, and now we are the developer for the court system. Since we already owned the software for Texas, we already had everything we needed to move forward, and we did. Now, it caused some consternation. When a company withdraws from the market, customers get nervous. When a company then goes bankrupt, customers get nervous. And so it caused some consternation in the project. You probably heard about some of the Dallas County, some of the consternation because of the uncertainty of the future of the project. But we were moving forward all the time. We planned the rollout of the software in 3 releases. I don't know if this is all in detail, I'm just telling the story. But the first release was going to be rolled out in February for $2 million. We completed that release in February 5th, 1.7 million. So we actually completed the first version under the budget. The next release is going to be rolled out in August, release 1.5. And then the final release, which has everything we need for a criminal court in Texas, will be rolled out in December. Now, AMCAD already had a working product. It was operational in the Justice of the Peace courts in Bexar County because it had everything they needed to operate a Justice of the Peace court. It was operational in the civil courts in Harris County. So it had everything you needed to operate a civil court, but it didn't meet the standards for criminal courts in Texas. It didn't do a lot of things that we needed to do for criminal courts. So a lot of the things that we're developing are really to deliver all the capabilities that a criminal court needs in Texas. What you're considering is bringing the software in for your Justice of the Peace courts, just like Bexar County. I want to reassure you that software has been operational in Bexar County for 3 years, and they have no plans to change that right now. So it's a reliable product, it's a dependable product, and it's going to have the urban counties back. So it's going to be better than it was under AMCAD. I think I've told you the story, and I think you're looking at it from the Justice of the Peace Court's perspective. So you'll be implementing, if you approve this, the same software that's in use already in Bexar County in their Justice of the Peace Courts. Now, our license is limited to Texas. So, but we have counties all over the country that are contacting us. We've had meetings with the state of Arizona. They're an AMCAD, they're a former AMCAD customer that's using every county in Arizona. And they're talking to us about how could we help them. In Oklahoma, they're using the software. There are counties in Pennsylvania, in Mississippi, in Alabama, in Georgia that are contacting us. Right now, we don't have the rights to supply them the software. But the company that bought AMCAD, Granicus, is negotiating with us for that. So we're in negotiation with that company to see if they will grant us the right to help these other counties, or if they want to become a partner again in the project. We don't know what they'll decide, but we're prepared to move forward without them. We're prepared to move forward for Texas. I just wish that I could do more to help some of the counties that are kind of left in the lurch. And get what you can.
So, Inspector, that you indicated that your home base is principally in Texas, but if it broached out to, let's say, universally throughout the country, how would that affect Texas as far as your industry?
We'd have to get bigger. We'd have to have more staff to support that, and you'd have the benefit of a financial return. So when those counties paid us to take care of their software, you'd get some of that money back. back, because you're the Texas county that's investing in the program. They wouldn't really join the program with you. They'd license it for much like, since it's really that university issue. Did I answer your question? Okay. Integration, this is a big deal, because we have to connect these systems up to other systems. And I want you to know we have a lot of experience with that. In Dallas County, we have the prosecutor system connected to their mainframe, connected to their jail system, and it's all working just fine. We'll do the same thing here. Our contract to implement the software here, either it's prosecutor court, includes those integrations. So we'll build those for you, so it connects to your jail, it connects to your court system, even if it's not, it takes you. What are the details of the proposal? I'm sure you've done your homework and read this over, but I'll just go over that briefly and I'll answer any questions. On Texas Prosecutor, you're becoming a full partner. You're paying your fair share to become a full partner in that software. So you'll be a co-owner with Dallas, Tarrant, Travis, and Midland. Hunt County is also considering this, and so they may join as well. That means that when another county joins, you'll get a portion of your capital cost returned to you. So the pricing, as you'll see, is broken into various categories. The capital cost is like a license fee, but that money really goes back to the counties who invest in the software. So when you pay your capital cost payment, that will be distributed among Dallas, Tarrant, Travis, and Midland. And then when another county comes in, you'll get some of your money as well. So that's what the capital cost is, and that's what it means to be a full partner. You'll also have representative on the stakeholder committee. So you'll get to decide, what's the priorities, what's the futures, what's the maintenance budget. It's really controlled by that stakeholder committee. So you'll be a full partner in that project. The implementation contract is included for your consideration, and that's exclusively for your county. No other county has a say over how it's used here. So you decide how the software is going to be used here, even though you're in a partnership for the maintenance and development of the software itself. Pricing is broken down on this page, so you can kind of see what pricing is. The capital cost is I can't say investment, but that's really to pay for the software itself. So you receive a full version of software with the source code that costs over $5 million to develop for $180,000. Additional software is optional in this case. This is software that's used for scanning and redaction in the prosecutor's office, and also for handling digital multimedia evidence. Those are optional, but we recommend that you consider those. Implementation, that's for the urban counties to come on site, install the software and get it working here for you, train your staff in the county attorney's office and the district attorney's office, and do all those connections to your local systems. And maintenance and operations, that's your annual cost for maintenance and operations for the next year, 2016. For 2015, if you go live, it'll be a portion of that, it'll be prorated based on what you go live. That's your cost for 2016. In future years, you'll participate in setting what those costs are. And the stakeholder committee really decides how much do we want to put into maintenance. If there's some new feature that we want to develop, it might be a little bit more, one year, a little bit less. That's based on population. So that's how the money is divided. Any questions about that? The court is a little bit different. We're offering an early adopter discount. Because you're only going to use the court in your JP courts, and because you're uncertain about what you want to do in the other courts, we're discounting the capital cost. We didn't use the actual cost. In the agreement itself, all those costs are spelled out. So you can see what it would have been if you were to pay the full price, what it is just for the JP courts, and what the discount is for the adopter. That means you won't get any of your money back right away on capital as another county joins. It means you'd have to wait until we reach a certain level, about 75% participation level, before you get money back. But you get your discount up front. So that's basically a $22 million software package for $210,000. So the three counties that are funding the development have invested almost $22 million in the project. The additional software that is required is something that's needed to manipulate images in the software, so you would need to license that software. The implementation cost is, again, that's us coming on site to convert your data, train your JP courts, and building integrations. The maintenance is estimated for 2016, but it's going to be it will be higher than that next year. So again, the maintenance is a 1-year contract because you reset those fees every year. You decide what the maintenance is going to be. David asked me if I would sign a 5-year maintenance agreement. I said I would love to sign a 5-year maintenance agreement because it's a hassle every year to renegotiate what the maintenance is. But that keeps you in control. It's not the vendor setting what the maintenance is, it's the county. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Just what I understand, in the prosecutor package, the M&O 38,333, that's a full year. It's 2016. So last year it's prorated,
We calendar,
whatever.
we do the maintenance on that basis. If you prorated for the first year, if you go live in, it's a 4-month implementation. So let's say if you approved it and you started in April and went live in August, you paid what it was for 2015. That's the maintenance fee for 2016.
Charles, I do have a question in terms of funding, the mechanism, if you will, and I know you have a layout of 3 components, the prosecutor package, the JP package, and then the hardware, kind of in those 3 prongs, if you will. So I'm looking at Travis County and Tarrant County, who roughly have a $500 million budget, give or take. We're a county that has roughly a $51 million budget. And so I'm thinking through what have those counties done to maybe look at other funding mechanisms. And what comes to mind for me is the slide when you spoke to the stakeholders, and that being the local jurisdiction, whether that's city funding coming in, because obviously they stand to profit significantly in terms of efficiency, whether there are grant dollars for counties that are taking the charge seriously because this has not been officially mandated yet. So I'm just kind of looking for some direction because we are a very small county in terms of dollars as it compares to Tarrant and Travis. So I'm trying to understand that.
I'll give you some suggestions for you to consider. It's a local decision, of course.
Absolutely.
You mentioned the defense attorney fee, possible charging a fee. And as long as the county attorney and the district attorney continue to offer the same services in a less convenient way, then you could probably charge a fee for that.
Okay, I have a quick question there, just to make sure I have my notes correct. But only Tarrant County is the one doing that today,
Right.
Assessing that convenience.
That's right. Midland County's considering it, but she's finding that she saves so much time in the office because of electronic interaction that she doesn't want to offer a less convenient way, if you follow.
Okay,
Now, in Dallas County, this is for the juvenile system. When we put the juvenile system in place, it also has a law enforcement component. They did contract, and they do contract with each of the cities. They have a contract with each of the cities in the jurisdiction, and they share some of the costs for the operation of that, the maintenance and operation. It's really a local decision if you want to enter into it. They have an interlocal agreement that they sign with each city in their jurisdiction. It covers issues of data sharing, their responsibilities under the project, and so on. I recommend that you do an interlocal agreement, even if you're not going to charge a fee. But you could certainly discuss and doing some caution, because they are going to save time and money by being able to electronically file.
okay, then I have a question there. So if I'm understanding you correctly, the interlocal agreement really tied to the maintenance and operation, not
That's what they did.
That's what they did. For Dallas County, in terms of the initial purchase, if you will, because I feel like that's where the big hit is.
Right.
Was there any cooperative dollar sharing, if you
There
will?
wasn't for either of these projects, but for juvenile, they did do a cooperative grant. So they had a regional grant. It was an Urban Area Security Initiative grant. I don't know if those still exist. They call them velocity grants. So they applied as a county with their local cities for a grant through the governor's office. And they got a grant to help fund the initial development of the software. In that case, it was an 80-20 match. So they had to provide 20% and the grant covered 80%.
The grant covered 80?
80%.
Okay,
So whether that's still available to you, I'd have to defer to your grant coordinators and folks in the county that seek grant funds for these kinds of things. So that was used to cover the development of the juvenile project. And what they're doing now is the maintenance and operation.
but what about as it relates to the prosecutor package?
I'm not aware of any cost-sharing models right now, other than the defense attorney's paying. Doesn't mean that there aren't some.
Sure.
No one has made me aware of it.
Okay.
Now, on the indigent defense I mentioned earlier, that's 100%. You're not considering them today. But in order to consider it, you apply for it. And so in that case, that system, which we do support, is free to the counties. It might be a small cost. You're already gonna do web-based interaction, you're probably gonna upgrade some of your hardware a little bit internally, so you probably wouldn't have cost. But that's something you might wanna consider in the future.
And I have one final question, I'm sorry, for the
That's
court.
okay.
So when the court considered or entertained this particular purchase, did you find that they made those purchases through their general dollars, property tax dollars? Or was this something that they slotted and budgeted over several years?
There's a lot of different ways that they do it. Dallas County, which has no debt, has a reserve account. And they have a percentage of their property tax that goes for information technology, just like the JPs have a technology fee. Well, they've made a decision that locally they'll put a percentage of their property taxes into a technology fund. And so they use that fund to fund major projects at this time. And they don't go out for any debt. On the other hand, Travis County, which incurs a lot of debt, they fund a lot of these projects, and I can't speak specifically, but I can get you in touch with Commissioner Gomez, who we haven't talked about. They went for a major bond issue related to a new facility. And when they went for that bond issue for a new facility, they included technology. So they borrowed money to upgrade a facility, and they included the technology upgrade. So they set up a capital account that they could draw from. Now, the bond attorney had to decide what could they spend it on.
Right.
Could they spend it on the capital cost, the implementation cost, and so on. But they actually went out for a bond to fund a lot of this activity. Tarrant County is funding from their normal reserves and budget on an annual basis. They've spread the cost out. There is an option in the interlocal agreement for you to spread the cost out. The capital cost can be paid over 3 years. So if you decided that you wanted to spread the capital costs out, you can pay it over a 3 year period into the CUC, and your interest rate is 1/2 of prime.
If you did that, spread it out, would you become a full member of this group?
You wouldn't be subject to any financial limits until you're fully invested.
That's what I figured.
But you would be a full partner on the stakeholder committee and a full partner in the project, from the governance perspective. Well, I know you're considering other things right now, so just some food for thought.
Sure. What about the JP package? I know we talked a lot about the prosecutor package and the 4 counties, if you will, Adams County, Tarrant, and Travis in that sense, they're slated for,
Midland also.
in Midland, for 2015. The JP package, what counties do you have live or in the funnel, if you will?
We don't have anyone live on textual court. We don't.
Okay.
But the software that you're gonna be implementing is live in Bear County. It was implemented by AMCAM before they went to business. Dallas County is also considering implementing the JP product. We've presented them with an implementation proposal. They have an RFP out for a JP product. We don't necessarily respond to RFPs because we're a nonprofit association. We can't indemnify the county, for example. We can't put a performance bond, for example. You would end up funding it as a member of the association. So why would you fund a performance bond so that we could do work for them? We couldn't do that. So we can't stand up to some of the legal requirements of the RFP, but we submit an information package. So if they decide, like Midland County right now has an RFP out for a court system. And so we responded with an information package that said, why don't you consider using textual court? You're already using textual prosecutor, you're already using the juvenile system. And so they're gonna consider it. And it's outside of the procurement, but it's a separate process. They can do that in parallel with the procurement and decide what they want to do. That's really subject to whatever your purchasing agent, the guy and say. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, I'm sticking around, so if there's any other questions that come up.
would like to hear from Jason. Wanna talk to us?
Yes, sir.
Tell us what your thoughts are on this.
You know, this has been talked about since before I came on board, in almost 2 years. And, you know, when you guys, starts at 5 of you, sort of the 5 of you, brought me on board, one of the things that you tasked me with was being sure that anything that the county became involved in would be something that was countywide, meaning that we would not have a repeat of what happened with the Spillman project. Okay. And that's one of the things that I'm happy to say about the CDC project is that we will be able to fully integrate this with other things, with other departments, so that we don't have a department that's sitting here looking at a screen, typing in John Doe into this screen, and then pulling it up in another screen, typing John Doe and all this information. And you know, based on our visits, because we did go down to Bexar County, golly, it's been a year ago now, I want to say. We went and actually saw the JT package in performance down there. Saw it actually in action. We spent a lot of time with the CUC folks over the last 6 months or a year. And I'm very comfortable with especially the prosecutor package, that there's an actual need for it, that it's going to suffice our needs. They have been very good about their implementation plan as far as I'm a detail junkie, so are these guys, because the devil's in the details always. And that's my 2 cents worth. Does that answer your question? Yes.
All of our departments relative to what issue we concern the sheriff's department?
I'm sorry?
You indicated it will be sort of spread out to all the departments, but on one umbrella.
Well, these products will integrate, meaning that information that's entered in one screen, let's say in the whatever office it is, let's say you're like your law enforcement folks, they won't have to enter things in 2 different screens. They'll enter, and tell me what I'm speaking out of turn here. If I'm the APD officer, I can go and enter the information, start the case and all that. Prosecutors don't have to re-enter that information. Does that answer your question?
I have a question for Randall, if I may, in terms of funding this and what a proposal might be that we would expect at court this coming Monday. As it relates to just the prosecutor package, if you will, the $750,000.
Okay, you're asking about funding?
Correct. Yeah, what the proposal will be to the court.
Now that we've got a harder number, it's still kind of fluid, but I'm anticipating on voice sales, I'm going to put some money into it. I'm going to pay for what I anticipate to be probably our half of the cost, I'm going to put $350,000.
And have there been any discussions with the city about a potential interlocal agreement?
I talked to the chief. They had numbers for going back and forth to Randall County, but none just to go 2 blocks. It was the number for going to Randall County and back was less than $75,000. So the numbers going back and forth to here, not going to be probably $10,000 and $20,000.
And just to make sure I'm following you, Randall, in terms of the number going back and forth, I'm assuming that's mileage coming back and forth?
Man hours, that's what
okay.
But basically what they rushed out the other for Randall County. And he and I talked about it and figured that the number would fall for Potter County somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000.
Even with the volume, and I'm thinking through just the number of cases that happen in Potter County versus, right, I understand the travel time, but.
See what is already happening, they're already sending it to us electronically.
Via the email system, and Commissioner Kelly and I did spend some time in
Actually, it's not an
here.
email system anymore, it's a direct line from the county to us that we're getting those directly into our system.
Like an FTP, is,
So
okay.
we evolved
Mm-hmm.
our paced together a bunch of different things. We kept evolving those and improving those with the help of Jason Patrick. And so they're already, for a year now, they've been probably almost a year, a little more probably, already been sending both of our offices on an electronic basis, and actually the Randall County too, they got that all set up. So the chief and I talked about that. It seemed like it was gonna be very little as far as the overall dollar value of what that was gonna be. I know that, I can tell you that every time I've seen John Keel, there's gotta be some grant money somewhere. Well, we actually found $50,000 worth of grant money, and it came from a grant that the police department got that they were not able to use. And remember there was, about 2 months ago, there was a commissioner's court agenda item to get some, wasn't that?
Storage space.
Yes,
On the storage space.
but you had to buy it quickly, and that was on.
Right, on hand,
Yes,
buy
we bought it.
quickly.
Mhm.
So we've gotten that grant and gotten that money to reimburse the county for the expenditures, because that stuff's already been bought for $50,000 of, I think, basically about $100,000 expenditure. So that's all that I've been able to find, and I'm asking the guy that's in charge of PRBC basically in regards to that. And that's how we got that done, and while I'm on it, I wanna thank John for helping with that, and Kerry's office for helping make that happen. And I mean, we got notified, well, we did at like 4:30 on Monday, and by 5 o'clock Tuesday, we were doing the had the application and stuff really kind of on its way, and that's Kerry and her bunch, and John helped me a bunch on some of the stuff too. So we've done that.
Randall, let me ask
And I
you a
don't
quick
know if there's
question.
other funds out there.
So does that relate to the hardware dollars in this proposal? As the
Correct.
56,000, if you will, that,
Correct, that's the
Equates
other
that.
half of what, there was about 100,000 total, we were
Okay.
able to buy about half of it on grant, and that's the balance of it.
okay,
Yeah, that's the other half of it.
all right, thank you.
So. Any other questions about funding?
I thought maybe you had a little bit more funding available for this. Like I remember back 3 months. You had,
I'm gonna put $350,000 into it. I'm gonna anticipate that I will spend another $100,000 when we come back up in regards to our computer system next budget year.
you're talking about $500 million, pretty close.
Something like that.
So the computer system for next budget, is that purchasing new computers or?
We're due up next for
Right.
rotation.
Okay,
There are gonna be additional circumstances that are gonna happen for the office that we're gonna need stuff. I know that, instead of coming back to court, we're gonna do it. Probably for the computer rotation, where the county's gonna be willing to pay, then I'll pay for the additional stuff that we're gonna wanna try to do.
We're probably not gonna wanna pay anything. We're probably not gonna wanna pay anything, so just work from there.
That can be your prerogative. So, but it's not really on the agenda, but I have another agenda item that I have talked to Judge Tanner about that I feel is gonna be very important. And so I don't know if I can talk about that now.
Probably not.
Okay. So, but it's gonna involve asset forfeiture funds. There's another grant that Kerry's office directed us toward, that we're working real diligently on now and trying to get an audit of task force. And I'm anticipating we're gonna spend some asset forfeiture money on, and we're gonna make some of that stuff happen. Looks like that place is gonna be somewhere around $2.5 million to get it started, if we're able to get the grant. But we're working real hard on that. Kerry's office and the Emerald Police Department's been real helpful in the Lubbock. I forgot what they call themselves, but it's a auto theft task force in Lubbock that's been down there for quite South months. It's been real helpful in helping us do that. So there's some other expenditures besides the typical stuff that I spend on routinely during the year that Kerry knows about. And I don't know what those additional expenses are gonna wind up being, so. That's on that.
Jason, as it relates to the computer rotation, will we be using the same VDI, if I'm calling it the right terminology, methodology to replace those computers?
No, because their office uses laptops.
Okay.
They've got to be able to carry them into the courtroom and, you know,
Right.
if they present their case line, so they'll be speaking with physical laptops.
Okay. I do have a couple questions for the JPs that we have in the audience, because that's part of the proposal, at least as we see it today, for the tech share. There's one county live in Baird County. And I see Judge Herman as well in the audience. Oh, I'm sorry, I see you, Judge Herman. You're hiding behind the column.
Oh, you are.
Oh, I am, okay, so I'm interested in your feedback as it relates to the dollar, in terms of the proposal. I'm assuming this whole package is what will come up for review. What will the proposal include in terms of funding for this?
We're looking at, because we don't have the kind of money that Randall has, we have about 190,000.
We don't either.
Carrie really doesn't want to spend more than half of that. So what we're looking at, we're gonna have to buy scanners for the clerks, electronic signature devices, touch screen monitors for the courtrooms. So we were wanting to use our IT funds for the hardware purchases that we're going to look at, to implement the software into the courtroom themselves for all the clerks. And so that's where we're at.
So that would be the 60,000, roughly 60,000, so the half. So as it relates to the 717,000 proposed, you won't have anything to offset that cost, if I'm hearing you correctly, okay?
It's my understanding that the JPs are the only ones who are not mandated to do anything on this case management, is that correct?
No, we're not mandated to do.
But everybody else is, right? Yeah, the e-filing.
Right,
So what system are you using right now?
Babbage.
Babbage.
And whether we have no control over that. Once Roland leaves, Babbage is gone. So it's either back to pen and paper or another software product, so.
Are you all on board with this package? You good with it? You good? You good?
You indicated some resistance.
I do have a concern.
Sure, please.
And I got here late, but in the military, when we went to all this cool stuff, and me and Gary was talking about it earlier, the biggest problem was pulling in this Babbage into this new system, because there's a lot of stuff that has to happen, or it doesn't go together right. And then you'll have crashes and problems, and it can create a whole lot of problems if it doesn't.
That's the implementation, that's the
big
data
deal.
conversion, and that is the big deal. And that's already been talked about at great lengths with IT, with CUC. I think IT and CUC have worked in the background with each other, that they're both comfortable that they can pretty much pull this off. It's not so much the data conversion is the issue, it's who's going to clean it
Right.
once it gets converted. And
So Jason, you're good with what you have to do to make it talk?
The conversion part, yes. Now, when it comes to cleaning up data, that's gonna reside inside the individual offices. Because we can't be put in a position to decide that these 3 John Smiths are actually 1 John Smith. That's not a decision we can make.
The thing that's good about this, no matter what program we're going to it as 4 JPs that want to do the same thing in all 4 offices. Up to this point, that hasn't happened. So let's say a form here that I use that has this line as a date of birth, that used to be something else, and this office over here has the same form with the same line that used to be something else, they're using it for an address. So each office has to clean their own information. And that will be the major toll, no matter what software we go to, we have the same problem. So
So they're concerned, because it's not that big a concern that, you're not, when you're part of the team.
I'm part of the team. I'm just a part of it. There's gonna be times.
Is Judge Jones also on board with this?
Yes, he is. Jason, I have a question, and just to make sure that I have my frame of mind correct in terms of when Roland goes away, which Roland has been vocal about retirement sometime in the future.
Right.
And we have been talking about the Babbage environment for several years, at least 3 years as I've been on the court. My takeaway is that Babbage is not going away. What we've tried to do is reevaluate through the timing of what can be put in place of to support a long-term strategy. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So when Roland decides to retire, the system does not go with him. It still is operational under the Potter County umbrella.
It is operational, however,
Sure.
Roland walks in, and this is the risk that we run with the setup that we have now, is that we have one person who knows anything about it, which is not a good place to be. In that individual can walk in today and say, here's my 2-week notice, and I've decided I'm gonna go fishing the rest of my life, or whatever. No, the system may not stop operating on the first day he leaves, but it may on the second, or the 30th, or whatever day.
The ongoing
And so,
maintenance piece of it.
right.
Okay.
Right. And ongoing maintenance, changes, legislative changes that come down, that sort of thing. We're not set up to maintain this, which is, that was the catalyst behind me starting this process almost 2 years ago, was that it's not a good place to be in when we have one resource to work with. And so the thing is, we've got to start taking proactive steps to get this, mission critical processes like courts, the clerks, whatever, to get them off of that system. Long answer to the short question.
No, that's good. And what I would say to the court is, Roland was really part of spearheading that conversation. So really kudos to him and his tenure at Potter County, and I think that goes without saying, but he has really been the one to raise his hand and say, at some point, I would like to retire and just be thinking. So really speaks to his character and making sure that we can sustain after he retires.
And I didn't mean to say it was gonna stop.
No, I just wanted to make sure I had it right.
I understand. At some point, it's like Jason said the other day, Potter County can't afford to hire another person that's a COBOL person. Like, just because they're few and far between.
Well, there's not that many of them.
Not that many of them.
For this dollar, we might be able to find someone.
But-
A day or two.
And so at some point in time, we're gonna lose our ability to call Roland and say, hey, I need this
Sure.
report, or I need this, right? And at that point in time, that computer system is not functional to us. It's only as good as what you get out, what you put in, but if you put it in all day, but you can't get it out, it's not good.
Judge Hunt, you did it?
I am good. I mean, I've been with Babbage for 25 years. And it was only in effect maybe 2 years prior to that, 1988. Martha Collier designed it. And at that time, if we made a mistake, and there were a lot of them, only Martha could help us. And then she retired. And then when we made a mistake, only Philip could help us. And then we have Roland. I mean, so it's not perfect. It's outdated.
Do you have any concerns that there's only one county live on it, if you will, Bexar County? And again, their budget size equals Carrington Travis and not ours, so that's good.
AMCAT, as it started, was out of Virginia. Texas was not their major selling ground. Bexar County brought it a long way into Texas, and I think had AMCAT stayed around, we would have saw, or would be seeing different, because there was other counties wanting to go on to, there was other counties that had paid money and hadn't got implemented yet, and got stiff. And,
Is that the bankruptcy conversation? Okay.
well, not the bank, just when this other company bought them out and decided, for whatever reason, we're not doing the courts package. There's still an MCAT out there.
Right.
Just not the courts package. And, but luckily the CUC, because we looked at MCAT, we looked at Tyler, we looked at Tyler twice, and it couldn't do for us what MCAD does in a user-friendly environment, do it.
Dave or Scott, any comments?
No, I think it pretty well covered what we would need to add, what we would need to cover. Obviously, as far as operational needs, I'm more closely aligned with what Randall needs.
So along those lines, Scott, as part of the presentation to the court in terms of offsetting the cost, will your department offset any of those costs? Is that part of the?
I'm looking, but I'm not sure I'm gonna have the kind of, I certainly don't have the kind of
Sure.
forfeiture fund. The gambling funds are already subject to your, that's gonna be the largest generated fund that our office has, other than, you know, fines and things like that.
Where are we with that, Carrie, as far as the gambling?
The dollar amount.
It's part of the problem with the gambling fund is it's sporadic. We'll run raids and forfeitures, and then we'll go a period where either there's ongoing investigations or there's just not any activity. So it's kind of hard to predict, first of all.
And the thing that I would caution you on, he does pay 3 salaries out of those gambling funds, so we're waiting for money to come in, we want to watch it closely.
Yes, we do so with very bated breath.
Yes.
And so there's no other potential funds that would be part
Now,
of the
as
presentation?
you know, hot checks are dwindling away, so I hesitate to offer that up because it's a bit chimeric.
I have a question and a concern, I guess, is legality of us even pursuing as a commissioner's court these funds that we're talking about.
Well, I think I hear everybody volunteering to kick in some.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
We're asking them, what do you got?
Yeah,
Well,
I think that's part of being
I feel like you're
informed.
expecting
Sure.
it.
No, I'm trying to make an
Yeah.
informed decision, and I think we're
Well,
more
I'm
than willing to do it.
It's
We
just-
understand what the
And I
legality
appreciate
is.
it. To be clear, the legality would really arise if the court said, unless you kick in X amount, we're not, we're not, that's
It's
it.
okay to ask.
Just ask the question.
Yeah.
I don't need to get jumped on because I asked the question.
No. The valid question.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions? Thank
Okay,
you.
so the CUC would be definitely just for the district attorney, county attorney, and JPs, correct?
Before all 4 days.
Right. So that leaves us with the county clerk and the district clerk for a package for them. Jason, you can do an in-house, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And it would talk to CUC.
Correct.
Is there anybody else that wants to talk about any other program?
Do you all want to hear why we think, I know at one point you had asked about PowerPoint and that sort of thing in regards to why we actually need the program. Do you want us to cover that or not?
Are you asking for the presentation on Monday? Is that what you're asking, Raymond?
No, I'm talking about for today. I wouldn't plan on doing it.
No, that was not my expectation today.
You want us-
Carolyn, you have some?
I do. I think these programs are the best that can be. We did lots of research for the prosecutors and the JPs. I just don't know still yet where the clerks want to go. We may want to look at Tyler, and we may want to proceed with Jason. It's kind of like looking at a program where you don't know what it's going to look like in the end. And it's pretty scary to do that. I know they're great processor workers, but you know, we may be getting down to the same situation in 5 years. Maybe they're not here anymore. So I do wish that y'all would think about funding consider funding for us.
I think that's on the radar.
Yeah, it is. And how much time do you think you need, Caroline, to tell us what you want, what you specifically want to do?
We're gonna be talking to Tyler, and I'd say probably in 2 months.
Okay.
And back to Randall's comment and question, I was just gonna add, when I originally requested a presentation to understand the need, what Commissioner Kelly and I did as part of that is dedicate a day or half a day into Randall's office. So we had the opportunity to work with the end users and see the FTP and see the emails, and we physically walked office to office to see how this transfer of data and the discovery, if you will. So that question, as it related to my question on the table, I feel comfortable understanding the need. I'm not sure, Commissioner Kelly, from your perspective.
Yeah, no question, there is a definite need.
Mike. Hard I worked on this, y'all.
You can email it, I'd be happy to take a look at it.
Well, could I just give y'all a few statistics about some stuff?
Sure.
First off, I want to tell y'all, before I get started, when I walked out of there last night, every time I walk out of there at night, and I step on that back street, East Sports, that courts building, I gotta tell you, I say a little prayer for y'all for thanking y'all for doing that. It has changed that situation tremendously, and every time I come up here, I'm just listening to you about it.
You talking about the lights?
Yes.
That wasn't for the guys, it was for the ladies, just so you know. Just so you
I did
know.
for the Shriners Party, and that's what that was. But, you know, this whole thing started with Jason with the enrolling situation in the case management system. And the Babbage is really just a electronic card filing system. It's something you just look at. It's not functional in any way other than keeping historical data that you manually enter into it. It's 25 years plus old, and that is an eternity in IT years. And now there are actually programs out there that will not only be your case management system, but be your operating system out of the same thing. And that's what all of us have been looking at. And TechShare Prosecutor does just that very thing. And some of the causes for what caused us to have to be here and really start thinking about it, besides the rolling and case management issue on Babbage, was the possibility of electronic filing coming to the criminal side. It's already mandated for the clerks here in Potter County, and it's mandated across the state of Texas civilly. And they incrementally made time periods when it took place in January 1st of this year was to start it for them to have to do it here in Potter County. The other issue is population growth. You can talk about prison systems and all that stuff all the time, but the fact of the matter is, statistically, as your population grows, a certain percentage of those folks are going to have to handled by law enforcement and criminal justice system. And the last thing that really kicked us in the teeth was the Michael Morton Act. And the Michael Morton Act changed us from a paper system where we had a case file and it moved through the office without ever sending an email or saying anything. And the defense bar came in and they looked at it and they got on the copy machine and they copied what they wanted and they didn't, the stuff they didn't want. So they did all of that. The Michael Morton Act changed that where we are responsible for doing a report about the discovery that is given to the defense. So there's no, I don't remember, there's no swearing matches about it got given, it didn't get given, it's gotta be recorded. So it was killed basically a whole other set of trees, blocks worth of trees every day by making copies paper-wise or doing something electronic. So that's the background of Michael Morton. They passed that law, came effective January 1st of 14. The statistics on our case management and where we're at now on the system we're at versus where we were on paper is hard to do because while it went into effect January 1st of 2014, and we started doing electronic filing at that point, it was for the date of, it went from the date of offense for January 1st, 2014 and forward. So what happens is, in our 2014 records, we still have 2013 cases coming in, for sure in January and February, and they gradually dwindle out. So I tried to do the 2014 numbers, we're about somewhere near about 200 less in 14 than we were in 15. I'm gonna tell you that's attributable to the electronic filing system, but what I can tell you is probably over 50% of the cases we handled then were probably still cases from 13. It didn't turn until we got to the end of the year that wound up being more 14 cases. So I can't give you any really hard numbers. What I can tell you is the way Jason Perry, my first assistant, and I figured it looks like for every one case we used to get done when we were doing a paper case, or for every 3 cases we would get done during a paper case, we're only getting 1 done with the electronic system we've got now. And the reason for that is there's more human intervention in our electronic system than there is our paper system before. And so, for example, the intake secretary has to get in a baggage 2 times. Prosecutor, CCH, Spillman, bond tracking, Z Drive, and Outlook. She has to get in 6 files to intake a case. Babbage 2 times. The minimum handling of a file for our whole office through the system, pretty much, the minimum is, if it's not from the Amarillo Police Department, because we got a direct line to that, then it's coming in on a disk or a thumb drive. And what that amounts to then from those agencies, we're having to download. So there's 1. Then we're going to move the file at least 3 times after the law enforcement's brought it to us. It's going to go from law enforcement pile to intake. Then if it's accepted, it'll go to the complaint place. The whole file has to be moved. If it's not accepted, it drops out of the system. Then from the complaint level, then it goes to the grand jury. If the grand jury doesn't get out the case, it drops out of the system. And there's paperwork to be done on the system every time when something drops out. They've got to do either a bond discharge, or if they've been arrested, you're gonna have to get them out of jail, okay? Then it goes to, if it makes it through the grand jury, then it turns into what we call, it goes and is moved again for the 3rd time to the indictment level, which puts it with the trial court prosecutor that's gonna have it. So we're moving a whole full file that is full of, most of them are full of a lot of Word stuff in PDFs, which doesn't take up much space, but we have a lot of pictures. And now in most cases we're getting videos, and our police department, that's 98% of our work, is now looking at body cams. And that's going to tremendously add to the video. DPS's cameras are going to high definition. I don't think I told you that.
It takes more storage.
Yeah, high, and way more storage. So there's going to be at least 3 moves. Then the Michael Morton discovery requires the intake lawyers to, when they take a case, then they're going to do a 3914 report, which they snapshot the file and put it into that report, and you have to edit it and build it and do all that stuff and then send it in email. But in order to get it into the defense portal, you got to compress the file. You got to take it, click what you want to compress the file, and then move it into the defense portal. So you've actually, by doing that, you move the file twice. They're going to do that probably at least 2 times before the case gets indicted.
And I'm gonna interrupt, every time you do that, it's between 30 minutes and an hour that your computer's unusable while you're copying and moving files around. So you move it 4 times, it's 2 hours out of the day that you can't do anything else with your machine.
Then when that's going on, and that's done, and it gets to the indictment and back to a trial prosecutor, same story. For them to have to move and do, because there's always things coming in. There's always supplemental things coming in, and you've got to report each one of those. And we're keeping the stuff only in the defense portal for 30 days. If it goes untouched, it goes out. Well, there's a lot of cases that get dropped out, so then the trial lawyers wind up having to put back the whole case file back, compress it, send it back into the defense portal again. By the time it gets through, baggage is going to be used at least 5 times, and there'll be at least 7 emails sent. Right now, we have the victim assistance coordinators with a grant that Kerry takes care of. And in regards to that, there's grant requirements for victim notice letters to go out, and also for them to keep stats in regards to the victim identifiers. Right now, all that's being done manually in an Excel spreadsheet. TechSure will do all of that automatically through their automation. The The differences between our current system of E-system and our old system, the disadvantages are it requires more human intervention, requires more computer time, thus taking up more time all the way around, not only on the computer, but for downtime for the people working. The current E-system and old paper system, advantages for the E-system is it handles Michael Morton better. Now, one thing neither one, our old paper system or our current electronic system will do, there is no tracking of the case contents, and there's no auditing capabilities at all. TechShare will take care of all of those problems. There won't be any moving of the files or re-entry of data. There'll be less recreation of documentation, less processing time, faster Michael Morton discovery, provides tracking of all functions, provides auditing capabilities at all levels, and saves storage and space costs. I know it had been 2 years ago, Arthur was telling me, you figured well, I guess it was a while back. Anyway, got communicated to me that, well, it's through somebody else, that the storage space is about full. And so there won't be any more boxes to have to fill coming from the prosecution offices. And I want to say Scott's office is experiencing basically the same type of issues we are. We're trying to mirror ourselves in what we're doing, so the real difference is just about the charging information, basically. And the last thing I'll say to you is about the ownership and control. It's a big deal. And the reason it's a big deal, I'll give you an example from Midland, Texas. When they bought in, they had to buy a package from a company called Extract, called Flex, in order to populate their database. And the way they were doing it, they're going to the jail. The jail's printing a report. They take the hard copy, scan it in Flex, and it's in an XML format. So Flex then pulls it off and populates it into their system. They're not going to have to do that because of the LEA portal that TechShare has gotten manufactured between this last fall and now, and it's being ready to roll out. Another thing TechShare has done for us is, since we started in earnest doing contracting with them, Jason Herring and I don't, have you been getting those, or you probably don't want them, you probably get enough emails, but we are seeing and been involved in what TechShare is doing with the prosecution package by emails and every other week, hour-long teleconference that we can see is showing what they're doing, what's been requested. We even got to give input on whether there's not some stuff that's going to get changed. And we're not even in yet. And so that, and what I can tell you is we're still in killing trees, but once the clerks get to be paperless, we won't be killing any trees at all. So thank y'all, and if y'all, unless y'all got some questions, that's all
I have one question. The county court law judges, where do they fit in this? What package will they be in?
what I would call the courts package outside of the JPs.
Outside of the JPs.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the courts package is a overall system with all of that. And the only part that's gonna get turned on here is the JP package. That's
right, you'll have.
That's a layman's way of putting it.
You'll have everything here, but you're only activating the JP.
Okay.
They make roles, the reason things will happen is they make roles, rules, and all that kind of stuff to identify it. So we'll use one file, and the law enforcement will be able to put into it. The defense will be able to look into that same file we're looking at, about rules and privileges, and then probably get the adult probation department in on that too. And the other thing we are talking with them about is the possibility of getting it where through roles, we could get the judges to be where we can then sign complaints and those sort of things automatically, and law enforcement can do the same. So they've got open ears in trying to move forward with some of this stuff.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Anybody have anything else they want to add? Anything else?
I thank Mr. Gray for his presentation, very good.
I provided you a document that is an overview of the contracts, and I'll let you take that home and digest that yourself. If you have any questions on Monday in court when it's presented, I can answer them. I also have the 200 pages worth of contracts that I have an email form. I'll email it out if for any reason you want to send me.
Is there anything else anybody needs to add or comment on?
Julie, you have any questions?
Yep.
Didn't think so.
Sorry. Okay. If not, we are adjourned.